Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Cormorant Productions, here to talk about This Is Us, Season 6, Episode 4, Don't Let Me Keep You. The episode's description reads as follows: Jack visits Ohio. That's it. That's all there is to the episode's description. That's really illuminating. Thank you, Internet Movie Database. The episode was directed by Jessica Wu, who did 3 other episodes of the series, including Season's 4 episode, The Club, which is an episode that I did not cover. I wasn't yet doing episodes on the series, and haven't gotten that far in rewatches. She also did last season's The Music and the Mirror. In addition to that, she also directed 6 episodes of 13 Reasons Why, 2 episodes of Billions, and 4 episodes of Parenthood. Altogether, she has 48 directing credits. The episode was written by Dan Fogelman and Elaine Mastai. Before going any further, I will tell you a couple of things. 1, this is not a spoiler-free video, so if you haven't watched the episode yet, please go and check it out and then watch my video. Secondly, if you like this video and want to support the channel, please like, share, and comment, as well as subscribing to my channel. Okay, so I'm a little conflicted about this episode. On the one hand, it's well made, well directed, well acted. Milo Ventimiglia puts in a great performance. A lot of people complain about the pacing of the episode. That doesn't really bother me so much because it makes sense for the story that's being told. There's a lot of things about this episode that I appreciate. I appreciate what they were trying to say. I appreciate what they were trying to do here. I appreciate the realistic look at what grief looks like in the aftermath of someone important to you dying. My main problem with this episode is that I think it should have aired years ago. I think that we don't need a totally 100% Jack-centric episode that takes place entirely in the past, with the amount of episodes that we have left and with so much story left to cover at this point in the series. There are a lot of people who agree with me and then plenty more who don't. This episode basically seemed to split the fandom. I don't see a consensus. People loved it, people hated it. Per usual, really. But in my mind, Jack as a character has outlived his usefulness on this show. I love the character of Jack. I love Milo Ventimiglia. He puts good work in on this show. But we really explored all the useful nooks and crannies of this character. Yes, it is true that we did not know what happened to Jack's mother, and it was a question that I want an answer. I just don't think I needed an entire episode explaining that to me at this point in the series. In Season 1, we had the mystery of where is Jack in the current timeline? And then it's how did Jack die? By the end of Season 2, we had that answer. We started Season 3 off with an episode that had a thread about Jack and Rebecca's first date. That was okay, but then we went ahead and continued on from there and put into question whether Jack and Rebecca were going to get together. We had Rebecca's ex-boyfriend in the picture, and to me there was no dramatic reason for that. We already know how that relationship turned out. By that point in the series, we had seen the entire trajectory of Jack and Rebecca's relationship, so introducing that narrative tension, to me, fell flat on its face. On the other hand, in Season 3, we had the Vietnam arc, where we saw Jack in Vietnam and got introduced to what exactly happened to Uncle Nicky. That was a story worth telling, especially since it added some shadings to Nicky and kind of served as his origin story, as he would soon become an important character in this series. But then we got to Season 4, which started off with Jack having conflict with Rebecca's parents, specifically her dad. And we had the narrative tension of, will Jack and Rebecca break up? Will they stay together? Which was just silly, because we already know how this story plays out. Once we learned how Jack died, and we explored the Vietnam era of his life, there was really nothing left to say about the character of Jack. And really, for a while now, the past timeline has had less and less interest to me, at least the Jack era. I still have interest in what the college-age version of the Big Three are going through. I want to know how Rebecca and Miguel got together, which is something we are going to explore pretty soon. I want to know more about the character of Uncle Nicky. Most of my interest resides in the current day and the future timelines, not with the past timelining. Now, of course, we're not going to entirely ditch the character of Jack. He's too integral to the series. But his presence on the show should be more to highlight the other characters on the show, the ones that are still alive. We should show his impact on the Big Three. We should show his impact on Rebecca, on Miguel, on Nicky. Not to say that the show doesn't do that, but having an entirely Jack-centric episode at this point in the series just doesn't do it for me anymore. Now, there are two ways in which I might feel better about this episode. One, if this were just a thread in an episode where we had other storylines going on. Or two, if they put Nikki into the story, which they totally 100% failed to do. This is a story about Jack and Nikki's mother dying. We couldn't have had Jack call Nikki to let him know. I know they're estranged, but you're telling me that Jack wouldn't call his brother to let him know that their mother died? Does that seem like Jack to you? Because it doesn't seem like Jack to me. If we made a duo story of Jack and Nikki having different reactions to their mother's death, I would have really forgiven this episode and this Jack-centric episode. It would have added shadings to Uncle Nicky's character. He didn't even really need to be at the funeral. In fact, that part of his thread could have been, do I go or do I not? And maybe he ultimately decides not to. Or maybe he watches from afar because he can't quite bring himself to go. Me and my longtime friend Stacy had talked about that before the episode aired, that we thought that Nicky needed to be involved in this story. And the fact that he wasn't really disappoints me. That being said, there is a lot of things that the episode does very well. And I'm not prepared to say that this is a bad episode. I'm just saying that it's airing at the wrong time. Like, this should have been a story that we told years ago, before the character of Jack lost his relevancy, before we had explored all that there was to say about the character. And by the way, on a random note, I can't help but notice that Mackenzie Henzisak, Parker Bates, and Lonnie Chavez are no longer listed as series regulars. They were the ones that played the younger versions of the big three, and who, I mean, they're just way too old at this point to convincingly play those characters. They look like college-age kids themselves at this point, and that runs into the Hannah Zeal, Niles Fitch, and Logan Schroyer version of the characters who played the teenage versions of the big three. I'm assuming that they will make appearances this season, if only showing up in the finale of this series, but they are no longer listed as series regulars. As far as this episode goes, like I said, there's a lot of things that I like about what the episode is saying. That even after Jack and Rebecca left an alcoholic, abusive husband's house, his presence still haunted them, even though he was no longer in their lives. And it impacted the relationship between Jack and his mother in a really tragic way, and in a way that Jack has to grapple with as he deals with her death throughout the episode. I like the phone conversation between Jack and his dad, played by Peter Ornati, who might just be making his final appearance on this show. Not that I'll miss the character any, because he's a piece of crap, but I do like the actor. It was a way to deal with Jack's alcoholism, who was seen drinking before this phone call, and it leads to him making a mistake and calling Stanley, his father, to let him know about his mother's death and his former wife. He wants to hurt his father. He wants to express his anger at his father for impacting their lives the way they did, by being the boogeyman that haunted him even after they left the situation. And because Jack makes this drunken mistake of calling his father, it introduces the possibility that he might show up to the funeral, which would upset everybody. Nobody wants him there. Nobody. Once Rebecca and the kids showed up, it was pretty obvious that Stanley wasn't going to be making an appearance, because Stanley had never met Rebecca and the kids. Jack had kept him out of their lives, for obvious reasons. The fact that Rebecca and the kids ended up showing up in this episode was also a pretty good aspect of the episode, because Jack had decided to go alone, not with the kids, because he didn't think a 4-hour drive was worth it. But of course Rebecca showed up, because that is the woman that Rebecca is. She is there for Jack. Even when he claims to not want that. Even when he claims to not need that. Rebecca is there for him. And the eulogy was also pretty great. It tied up the episode's themes pretty well. And like I said, there was a lot of good in this episode, including Milo Ventimigia's performance. It just feels like a case of too little, too late, and it didn't feel like it needed to be an entire episode of this at this late juncture in the series, with only so many episodes left and so much ground to cover. Now, I can't tell if I'm in the minority on this, because, like I said, I read through the comments on pretty much everything that I check out. Some people love this episode, some people felt like I did. If you're one of those people that love this episode, I can see why, and more power to you. I just think that this episode should have happened much, much sooner in the series life. Anyway, that's all I got for you. I didn't take this one scene by scene, because it really didn't feel like it was worth it to do that. I would think I would have ended up with an inferior video if I attempted to do that. If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join my two Facebook pages, the Cormorant Productions one and the This Is Us discussion page. You can buy something from the Cormorant Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee, which is a new way to support content creators such as myself. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to my channel. This is Dave from Cormorant Productions, signing off.